and the idea of the attitude that we have towards homosexuality is pure discrimination, period. And I think that those three things, race, language, race, culture, and discrimination are things that really keeps us in subconscious bondage, because we don't look at it from a conscious level. We have been so indoctrinated with those with attitudes towards those things until we do it without thinking about it. I remember a book called The Ugly American. And
should be read.
Yeah,
Still.
it really should be still pertinent. Yeah, and I think that it says it all in terms of our attitudes.
For security purposes,
We
this call
feel
has been
like
terminated.
if you don't speak English, something, even if we're in your country, we upset because you don't speak English. Everybody in the world is supposed to speak English. That's supposed to be the international language. And I think that's something to be dealt with. And I think we already touched on the monetary thing. From the Constitution says that Article 1, Section 8 talks about the valuation of the coins of money, that the U.S. would value the coins, not just domestic but also foreign. So that's the reason all monies are weighed against the currency, the dollar.
Because what?
Because the Constitution says that.
Oh, because our Constitution says it.
Yes.
So that means every other country is weighed against our dollar because
Yes.
our Constitution.
That's why when you look at the valuations, monetary valuations from nations is balanced against the dollar.
But it's only because they let it be.
It's only because, and not because they let it be. They don't have a choice.
Right.
Because America has such a hold on the economic system around this world. If you disconnect from the valuation of the dollar, your economy collapses.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to test that, aren't we?
We really are.
So we
And
just
that's the fear. See, that's the thing that people are missing concerning what's going on right now. If the default takes place, you will see it. Why is it that the Greek, whatever they call their drama, which is the thing they call their money?
Drachma?
Drachma. The Greek drachma can be worth zero, and it doesn't affect us. But let the dollar be worth zero. It affects the whole world. So that's one of the other things, and that in itself is more of global colonialism than anything else, economic colonialism
Well, yeah.
than anything else.
Particularly since this whole the globalization stuff.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just like inflation. You don't really care if there's inflation in France
Right.
if you're not in France. That's
So-
their problem, and they can find a new balance. But it's when you bring your currency, etc.
And
What
that's-
you want to do, what you want to be able to do with that money.
So last time we went through this, I think we were somewhere, and the lady at the mall where they sell stuff says, when America hurts, we hurt, is what she said.
Yes.
We were going through something very, very similar to this about
I think that's
Golden
when
Cliff.
you were, that was last November when you went.
Was it last November?
When you went to,
That's right, anyway.
yeah, Antigua.
I'm about to do it again, aren't we?
Yeah.
Golden.
So,
Yeah.
it's the gateway month. It's the 11th month. So anyway, that in itself is a form of global economic colonialism. But the reason I wanted to look at these forms of discrimination and all this stuff coming under the head of racism, because I think we have a total misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding that we have is number one with the whole linguistic thing. When it talks about the languages being changed at the Tower of Babel, it's not talking about Chinese versus English at all. And that's one of the things I wanted to deal with. And then I also wanted to look at this whole thing on homosexuality and deal with it, because the whole idea of Sodom and Gomorrah having been destroyed because of homosexuality is erroneous. And I want to deal with that. Yes.
I think it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was thinking about it this week, homosexuality, and the idea that we are androgynous beings.
Right.
And it just seems a little silly once you accept that fact to get upset with two people of the same physical sex that are attracted to each other.
Yeah, I mean, you got this corporate in Pennsylvania yesterday saying that homosexual marriage is equivalent to a brother marrying a sister. That's ignorant. That's totally different. But that's the kind of ignorance that
Which used to go on.
that's out there. Yeah. Maybe he know more about that than he's known, right? But anyway, I think we need to talk about this. That's all. I think we need to put it out there. I think we need to clear the air about and I don't want to say Western attitude as much as I want to say American attitude, because we're the most arrogant people on the face of this earth.
Yeah, don't pull the Canadians.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave them alone.
And Mexicans.
Actually, I struggle now to make reference to the people of Mexico as Hispanics or Mexican. As you know, I look at it. What happened? I was out shopping, doing something, and it hit me. Oh, I know what it was. I was pulling to the lot at the shopping center, and I stopped. These people walked across in front of me, and they were quote unquote Hispanic, and it hit me. They short, all of them. They Aztecs or Mayans, you know. But yeah, the one down in Honduras, they're Mayans and Aztecs, and they called Spanish Hispanic because they speak Spanish. They speak Spanish because they were colonized by the Spanish. So it's almost like everything is being made, brought to the surface with me. I'm recognizing things for what they are, and everything that I recognize for what it is brought for a reason, and the reason is to deal with it. So when Ron was in Texas during the week, and he was talking to me about the Hispanic and how nice they are, and the way their work ethic and that kind of thing. And I said, "You talking about Aztecs, man? You ain't talking about no Mexican." And when you think about it from that perspective, and begin to think about how welcoming they were in terms of people coming in to the nation, then you begin to see the warmth that is there, and you begin to understand the reason that they are the way they are in terms of being open armed and forgiving, etc. And most of the indigenous people are the same culturally in terms of welcoming visitors in. I mean, even look at what Abraham did. He sat in front of the tent welcoming visitors. Yeah, that's the whole concept. Is that, and the reason welcoming is so prevalent is because we see everyone as being a part of us. And you are me and I am you. And if that being the case, then it's like one of the portions of Sharia law is no different than any other law. And one of the things of Sharia law, one of the things it says is that you are to protect and feed the stranger. That's without regard to his religious belief at all. As a matter of fact, if he does not believe in Islam, all the more for you to protect that person and to make sure that they're comfortable, I should say. So all these misconceptions are put out there for a reason. Another one is, I think I mentioned this to Nick or Shell, or both, I don't know, during the course of the week, is that the only people who thought the world was flat were Europeans. The other folk didn't think that. Look at how they drew the solar system in circles. So we, we have this mindset that we have been indoctrinated with, and we judge people by it without thinking about it. Now, to get to the homosexual thing, Janice brought up a very valid point about virtue of us being androgynous. We should not have issues with that kind of thing. I mean, it is what it is. I was reading about the Sioux and the Native Americans in the middle of the country, Midwest, and the Sioux. I just remember what they called it in their language, but it was neither. Let me see if I still have that. If I have that with me, I'll read it, and it would be clearer to you, I think. I don't know whether I brought it. Did I? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I did. My question is, can I find where I read it? It's dealing with the whole idea of how they related to a man that was neither man nor woman, but he acted as though he was a woman.
Talking about the two spirits or a berdash?
Oh, here it is. It says, Winktes, W-I-N-K-T-E-S, were men who dressed like women, looked like women, and acted like women. They did so by their own choice or in obedience to a dream. They were not like other men, but the Great Spirit made them Winktes, and we accepted them as such. They were supposed to have the gift of prophecy, and the secret name a Winkie gave to a child was believed to be especially powerful and effective. In former days, a father gave to a Winkie a fine horse in return for such a name. That's how they, you see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, if that was the relationship, if that's how they related to people to men who were like women, then where did it come from? Our attitude. Where did it come from? What is the basis for our attitude?
Religion, Puritanism.
Religion, Puritan, and where did it come from? Why was this brought into why was it introduced? And the whole concept of Sodom and Gomorrah is the foundational scripture that is used for that. That's one of them anyway. Now, if everything in the scriptures is spiritual, then this stuff must have spiritual connotations. It has to. And if you look at it very carefully, you will find that there was far more going on in Sodom and Gomorrah than was going on than homosexuality. And then the other part of it is this: when you look at that, if you read it, you will see that Lot says to the angel, he tells Lot to go to the mountain, and Lot does not want to go to the mountain. He wants to go to this town that's nearby, and he says, because you're going through this city nearby, it will not be destroyed. Now, my question is this: if the city was going to be destroyed, then it must have, the same thing that's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah was going on there. So why was it okay for him to leave there and go, to the other place if he was leaving there because of homosexuality? It doesn't make sense. So what's the purpose of all the destruction? Why is it, what does it mean when it talks about the wife of Lot looking back? What connotations does that carry? And I'm asking because I don't have the answers. I have ideas about it, but I don't have the answers. But I do think that is worthy of an in-depth discussion.
My biggest issue is always with the rape.
The what?
Rape.
Okay.
Because the whole, I mean, I don't remember the scripture exactly. I'm actually going to look it up here in a minute. But if I'm not mistaken, they wanted the visitors to come out so that they could rape them, right?
Yes.
It seems worthy of destruction to me.
Well, see, and that's the basis for the whole concept of it being destroyed because of homosexuality. The city would go be destroyed whether they came and asked them or not.
Oh, okay.
But weren't the visitors messengers?
Yes, they would. See, this is the thing. If they were messengers, right,
Mm-hmm.
then that means they were spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
How can you rape a spirit?
So,
I'd
so
say it
what does the
happens
physical
all the time.
manifestation of that spiritual thing?
Yes.
What does that
What that?
represent?
Right. What does that? Not only, but also, Robert, what? Why is it that? Why is it that they just wanted them? Why didn't they rape Lot? Why did they rape Lot's son-in-law? Because when the messengers came, they were out in the city doing what?
But
You see what I'm talking about? I mean, it's so much conflict, so much confusion in this, and that's the thing that I want to sort out.
isn't every message different?
Yes, they are, but they're the same. And all of them about repentance, returning to the state that you were before. You know?
What do you mean?
Because we're messengers, right?
Oh.
And you're you. He is who he is.
Sorry.
So that's why I asked
Too much
that.
technology.
No, that's abuse of technology.
Hey, I don't even know
No,
where the
leave
dialer
it
came from.
Well, what strikes me in what you're saying is several things. One, I guess if you want to, a very effective way to control or manage an understanding of something that's complex is to find a very glossy overview, summarized description of it. So then we move on. So Sodom and Gomorrah, homosexuality, boom, gotta be destroyed, boom. That's it. No, that precludes anybody raising hands and saying, wait, but there was this, that, and that thing. So that's one thing. That's maybe the church dealing with it.
And
Scripture,
so-
but
Go ahead.
the other thing, I mean, what I'm focusing on is more the word rape and what we're talking about. If you're going to rape, if people are bringing news, information, understanding, awareness, what's the act? What is the act of rape that connects these 2 points?
Right.
These two, that's not points, but you.
Rape,
So what are you doing by that act,
if adultery
metaphorically?
is spiritual intimacy with a concept that is contrary to the Creator's desires for us, then rape is forcing that. It's forced intimacy.
All right, so the idea of raping this awareness is to try to dominate and control it, right? Or
Yes.
Or to to
Master and
distort
bend
it,
to your, yeah.
Right.
dominate it, right?
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, at that particular time in history, the culture, to put it in context, was to actually punish, to rape someone forcefully was to rape them. So the whole idea of rape had nothing at all to do with homosexuality, but to actually punish the spirits, or to almost be against the spirits, so to speak. So that's like the worst thing that can be done. That's what the whole idea was of raping the spirits, raping the messengers.
So it's forcing the concept of darkness on those who are bringing light. For example, we talk openly about Africa being raped. we've heard that, we use that term, but what do we mean by that? We're not talking about, it was rape, somebody raped the continent in terms of physical rape. We're talking about the way the people were taken and a new culture was forced on the people who were taken. And so we're talking about concepts being forced as opposed to physical force, because rape has nothing to do with sex at all. Rape is totally about violence, regardless of how it is. It's about violence and domination. That's what rape is about.
Definitely about domination.
Yeah. So that's that. So when we look at that, I don't want us to focus so much on the rape aspects of it and not look at the idea of homosexuality. Because the whole word, the word sodomy came from Sodom and Gomorrah. But if you look at the word Sodom, Sodom means to burn or to scorch. It has nothing to do with sex at all originally. But that's the definition, or that's the understanding that was attached to it. And as Richard said, and it was just glossed over and accepted. Well, I don't think it was accepted. Now it's glossed over and accepted, but I think then if you didn't accept it, you were killed.
Well, that's
That's
one way to get it done.
Yeah. Either you accept it or you die. Yeah, that was the whole idea.
Now I want to know what the heck is going on in Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you in a few moments. I think I'm gonna attempt
Building
to.
up to it. Right?
Yeah, build up to the climax.
Ooh. Oh.
Oh, boy.
I didn't mean it like that.
Sure.
Yes, you did.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't. No, I'm good. I was gonna wait a second.
Oh, okay.
We are gonna get into him and his daughters, right? We're gonna get into.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, when you look at that,
It looks horrible in his face.
yeah, because if you have this Puritan attitude, then there's no way that Jesus could have been pure. Because Ruth was a Moabite, and the Moabites came from Lot's oldest daughter, and Lot. Incest. This is so,
Wow.
when we definitely gonna look at that. I don't know whether it'll be today or not, because we already got a plate full with just the homosexual question,
Wow.
And,
Well, if you do
and look at Boaz, he came from Judah and Tamar.
Yes, yeah,
That's father and daughter.
yeah.
So,
It's a whole lineage of, incest and prostitution, sexual perversion.
Stuff
there.
we look down upon.
Yes.
All that stuff.
Yeah,
just all you got to do is go back to this whole stuff about DNA south and southern part of Africa. I mean, at one point there was 20 folks crossing from Russia to Alaska and populating the New World. How do you do that without a little
yeah.
Right.
They, and not to go off topic or anything, they kind of, the idea that there was like a small group of people that crossed over from Russia into like the northern Canada and then came down is actually, it's not as popular.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
They keep finding things that
Yeah.
challenge all kinds of stuff like that, including evidence that people like the Mayans and the Aztecs came from the east and traveled west,
Yeah,
not from
yeah.
the north and traveled south. So from the ocean or some other place that they don't understand where it came from.
And then there's, according to ancient astronaut theorists, right? There's the whole
Oh, yeah.
There's the whole
And-
H2 approach.
Well, the Dogons say that to this day. That's part of their culture. That they came from, Sirius, yeah. So that's, but right. I don't want to get off topic because we get into that. We go travel
Oh,
in a different
very
direction.
quickly,
Oh
very
yeah,
quickly.
oh yeah. So
There's a lot of fun stuff out there.
it really is. But I wanted to stay with this homosexual thing and see where we go from there. Okay. I want us to understand that if there is homosexuality manifested in the natural earth, material earth, then there has to be a spiritual homosexuality. It has to have a spiritual connotation, because as above, so is below. Is that not right? You see, you can't believe that when it's convenient, and not believe when it's not convenient. I think that people look at stuff, and because they don't understand it or can't explain it, they call it what they want it to be, instead of leaving it alone or bringing it out and saying, I don't understand it, let's talk about it. They just attach something to it, and the thing that they attach usually is whatever's going to benefit them. Now, is it not funny that, not in a way, but that the people who introduced the harshest punishment in a natural way for homosexual activity are the very people who engage in homosexual activity from the religious perspective. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, it's almost like I got to put it on you so you don't see me.
Mm.
I was gonna say, and the physical perspective.
Yes.
And speaking of punishment, do y'all know where the word faggot comes from?
No.
No.
More?
So the word faggot, it actually means like a bundle of wood.
Oh, yeah, that, yeah.
So like if you read Lord of the Rings, I remember reading it, and they would talk about carrying around faggots, and I was like, what?
yeah.
It means bundle of wood. So it got associated with people because homosexuals and people of other like parts of the sexual spectrum, they were considered not worthy. So, okay, people got burned at the stake and stuff, but homosexuals were considered not worthy of, you know, like being tied up to something. So they were thrown directly into the fire.
Mm.
So they were treated like faggots. They were considered bundles of wood, tossed directly on. And so that's where that comes from. And to just, I didn't even know that until I forgot how long ago I learned that, but like to just realize what that actually means and to understand where you have to come from, the mindless like hatred and fear that comes with associating somebody with that or being able to treat somebody like that is something that has to be dealt with.
Right.
Because it's pure insanity.
So where does it come from?
And so, if you make reference to someone as being a faggot, then you are actually buying into the whole concept of throwing them on the fire, of burning them alive. And simply because you don't understand it doesn't make it untrue. You cannot change what is. Whatever the universe says is, that's what it is, regardless of what you call it. It doesn't matter. It's like these people who are having fall festivals. Hell, that's Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how you put it. You celebrate Halloween. But now you call it the fall festival. You got the same colors. You got the same pumpkins. You got the same apple bobbing, and that came from witchcraft. You have the same little games, the little spooky houses, etc. All these things are there. You call them Jesus houses. So, but you're trying to, but the energy is the same.
Right.
It doesn't make any difference what you call it. You cannot change the moon simply because you call it the sun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be careful how we speak towards things, how we think, how we respond.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it is imperative that we look at all of the darkness that's involved or that has been associated with the idea of homosexuality and bring light to it. That's what we have to do. Now, how we do that, I haven't the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
you know, what route we take, I haven't decided. All I know is that if the Creator laid it on allowed it to rise up in my spirit or anyone else for that matter, to the extent that it's brought out, it's time to deal with it. It's time to deal with it. And the underlying thing, I'm sorry, but the thing that helps me to believe that more fervently is the idea that Janice was talking, you think about this week. You
I
know?
actually called you to talk about it. I just forgot before I got off the phone.
You see? So this is important.
Wow.
So then in the same way that we've learned, we stopped to think about it and understood over time that the idea of rape, you know, in the last decade, etc., people have been willing to understand what it really is and reveals, and yet the old connotation was very sexual. It makes me ask then, if we're going backwards in time, so to speak, what should I understand is, and particularly if it's spiritual, then what is homosexuality? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
If we're invert the pyramid in the sense that we're just we think we understand something, just like Sodom and Gomorrah, but we're dealing with some glossed over definition that serves some purpose, but it ignores and thereby confuses any understanding of what the whole notion was originally about. And it wouldn't shock me at all if it had nothing to do with sex.
It doesn't.
Because ultimately it wouldn't.
Well, it doesn't, and that's where I want. That's where I want to come. Yeah,
We just distilled
that's
it
the
down for
segue.
some particular purpose.
Homosexuality, to me, homosexuality is a higher form of man's, a higher manifestation rather, of man's selfishness and desire to do things the way he chooses to do them. And that falls on the shoulders of all of us. If you look at the idea that when you look at it, if you read it in the first, is it the first chapter of Romans? Yeah, around the 20th verse, it talks about they exchange the truth for a lie, meaning the religious or the spiritual leadership in the church exchange the truth for a lie. And as a result of that, men sought after men and women sought after women. So what does it mean to exchange the truth for a lie? It means that you exchange light for darkness. What is the darkness that you exchange it for? Well, there are two concepts. One is the tree of life, and that is receiving for the purpose of sharing. The other one is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and that's receiving for self alone. That's what we call selfishness. I think we have watered down the true meaning and the powerful bondage or hold that selfishness has on mankind. And I think to look at homosexuality in a demeaning way and not accept responsibility for it in some way, shape, form, or fashion is to actually ignore the elephant in the room. Am I making sense?
Yes.
So I believe that when we begin to explore and see the whole concept of self, for example, if your child is homosexual, then it takes on a different conversation. It should.
Yeah.
The idea of homosexuality being the thing that's pushed to the side, hidden, not talked about, tells me that it's the thing that we need to talk about the most. Because if it is what I'm describing in terms of the essence or the highest, the epitome of desire to receive for self alone, then desire to receive for self alone is death, isn't it? That's what it results in, isn't it?
Yeah.
And homosexuality results in death of the human, because you cannot reproduce from that. So if it's the highest level of selfishness, it is not something to degrade, but it's something to shed light on. And nothing changes as long as you sweep it under the rug. And when you sweep something under the rug, you go deal with it, because eventually it's gonna be such a mess under the rug, go trip and fall over. So you go deal with it. So I'm saying, let's reach in and bring it to the forefront, not to degrade, but to look at it for what it really is. If it is indeed the epitome of selfishness, the desire to live for self alone, then what does that mean? What does that look like? You know, how do we deal with that?
And how does a homosexual person come to grips with that?
I
said, how does a homosexual person come to grips with that?
Well, I think the homosexual person will come to grips with that in the same way that people come to grips with what we talk about by putting in the macro. You know, when we shed light on it, you know, other people begin to look at it. And I don't believe that we should. I believe that we have to bring it out, because we do not look at it in a negative way. We do not condemn it. We do not damn it. We simply recognize it for what it is, and let it do what it do. You know, it's one of those things I was thinking last week. One of the old sayings that most of us grew up with. We just have to make do with what we got. You know, that means that there's this simple saying that do what it do.
Yeah.
That's another way of saying it. But we don't have to let it do what it does when we're making reference to the statements that are the labels that have been attached to people. We don't let that be. We have to deal with that,
Right.
because those labels are demeaning. And the way we deal with that is by elevating it. If I be lifted from the earth, I would draw all Adam, the whole of Adam, unto me. If I be lifted from the earth consciousness, if you elevate the whole concept of messianic awareness above the earthly awareness, then the whole of Adam, the whole of mankind, the whole of humanity will be drawn to that light. That's what that's talking about. So that's what we're making every effort to do. So somebody help me talk about this saying, if you indeed see it, what I'm trying to say in reference to the desire to receive for self alone.
Yeah, I want to add something, but are there any questions so far? I just want to help clarify and sort of give you some more background for what this means. When we say it's the height or the manifestation of the height of selfishness, it's not necessarily that someone who's homosexual is like selfish in a way that we would normally think about it.
Right.
But I'll get to the explanation. But let me build up to it. So I was reading some article about
There it is again.
I was reading some article about where homophobia comes from in men in particular, and a lot of it apparently comes from fear of being in a situation where a straight man will be hit on by a gay man. So in other words, being put in that position makes men who are not gay very uncomfortable. And that's part of their sort of reflexive reaction to homosexuality when they do have that anyway. And the root of that is they don't understand how they would react in that situation, and it puts them in a situation that they don't understand. Well, what I just said. So what it is that someone doesn't understand when they find themselves reacting in that way is actually themselves. So in other words, the men who treat other gay men negatively as a result of their own lack of understanding don't really understand what it means to be a man, quote unquote. They understand the physical ways we have attempted to describe or define that. But when they're put in a situation that is totally the opposite of that, all that quote understanding begins to break down and they become afraid because they don't understand it. And in that situation, they have nothing to fall back on. So what it takes, partly in order to correct people's like negative attitudes, is understanding of self, particularly males. Because males, well, straight men, treat gay men worse than straight women do in general. So it means that your understanding of yourself has to be based in the reality of what masculinity is. And the same goes for women. But more so for men because we do more damage. So the explanation I'm building up to, anyway, is that the selfishness is fear that comes with lack of self-awareness and understanding of what we are. And if you sort of flip that around in gay men, so I've heard a lot of stuff about it. One of the things I agree with is that it is in part a unwilling to take on the spiritual role of the male because of the dangers that are associated with it. And what I mean by that is, in general, or as an example anyway, a male might be homosexual because at a deep psychological, mental, and spiritual level, the reality of what masculinity is in a spiritual sense is being rejected because that individual has an awareness of what that would bring into their experience. And what it would bring into their experience is frightening. And because they give in to the fear, they're being selfish. So males who are straight, who give in to the fear of not going deep within themselves and understanding what it means to be male, are being selfish as well. So I hope that shed some light anyway on where this is coming from. But all of it begins and ends in selfishness, in the sense that we have to accept the reality of who and what we are, and then give it and choose to give it. And so we receive for the purpose of giving, as opposed to trying to create a bubble that we can live in and receive without giving.
That's self-preservation. The fear that is self-preservation. If I give in to this spiritual masculinity, then I don't know what I'm going to end up being, or I don't know what the results of it is. How many times have we faced things that we did not want to go through with because we were afraid of the results?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same principle, but on a much deeper level from a spiritual perspective. When you made the statement about quote unquote straight women treating homosexual males different than straight males do, think about it. Most homosexuals, there are females in their life. Most of them is one, and the term fag hag. That's where it came from. From the straight female who has homosexual friends, and if you and now don't get me wrong, even though there are gay men who use that term in referencing the female in their lives, that was applied as a derogatory term in the beginning. To be a fag hag was a disgrace. But it seems as though when you look at groups of homosexuals homosexual male who are with females or have females that they're close friends or close associates, none of those females are lesbians. Why? Is it because the fear of identifying with the masculine energy? Is it easier to submerge it with a higher level of feminine energy in your presence? Does it make it easier to accept or make it easier for you to live with? You know, why is that so? And if that is the case, then would the idea of a quote-unquote straight male, and I use straight male, I don't know what else to call it, a male that's not gay, would it not follow then that a male that's not gay, who is a close friend with someone who is gay, is a mirror for masculinity? And by virtue of being there, gives opportunity now, and I'm not talking about natural manifestations right now, but gives opportunity for the idea of masculinity from a spiritual perspective to be mimicked or shown or displayed. But the male who is straight has to have an understanding of who he is. And when he does have that understanding, does it not it begin to decrease the fear of the expression of masculinity in a male? Yeah, and you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah.
Yep, and it was something that I realized that I had as well, because there was one point I was living in a house where, like, of 6 people, like 4 of them were gay. Like, that's just DC. Like,
I've heard.
but so
or Atlanta or Chicago or San Francisco or what?
yeah, I think I was over at a party, and it was I don't know in gay culture what it's called, but it was a party for gay men that I was also invited to. But like it was like a dinner party or something at one of my friend's house, and I realized that I was pretty uncomfortable. And the truth is, it was no different. I should have just been talking to people like normal, but I kind of hung out with my straight friends because we all understood each other, right? But part of that fear was exactly this, was being in a place where I was totally, I didn't know what to, I didn't understand. But the truth is, and I've come to realize that you have to get over yourself, because all the males who treat gay people negatively are like, oh, I don't want to get close to that because they are afraid they will become that, is secretly what they are afraid of. And they are afraid of that because they don't know what it means to be a man. Not male, but a man. And the truth is, a man does half the things that currently we don't say they should. And I mean things like we normally associate with women, like crying, being emotional, hugging all the time, kissing other males, and in a totally non-sexual way. And it's interesting to think, because what we normally associate with men and women has changed totally. Back in Greece, and then less so in Rome, ancient Greece, and less so in ancient Rome, males were the ones that were considered emotional. Males cried, and that was like a sign of masculinity. Kids wore, they didn't differentiate children, dresses for girls and like pants for boys or whatever until this century in this country. And like 60, 70 years ago. Before then, nobody cared. Like there's pictures of, presidents wearing dresses when they were children because everybody wore one. So, what partially this is the result of is the acceleration in the process of evolution, which in the tree of knowledge paradigm anyway means that division is increased. So the distinction and the division between men and women, and the roles that we associate with the men and women, the understanding of the reality of what males and females are on an internal spiritual level. We want to distance ourselves more and more and make sure we stay within the little bubble we're comfortable with as a result of this influx of energy, actually. The truth is, we have to break and pop our own little bubbles wherever we feel them.
You finished it?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. There are a couple of things here. One, or maybe three. One is when you made reference to that thing about DC, right? When we were in college, it was like every time you saw a gay man, like in DC, it was 10 women for every one man. That's where it was when we were there. And every time we saw a gay man, we were like, okay, it's 10 more. I mean, but
It's terrible.
And it's still kind of true. It's at least like 3 women
That's right.
for every dude. And then like
And
every
they were
third
all
guy is
looking
gay.
for you.
yeah, that's what I believe.
So DC is
That which is wrong, I guess, because it worked. But anyway, that the other part of that is, I, like you, was very uncomfortable around gay males, and the discomfort was evident. And one of my roommates, when I was in college, we moved into an apartment, and so it was a bunch of the guys who were roommates. His brother was gay, and his brother came out of the military, and he moved in with us until he got on his feet. And that was a kind of a stigma until one day one of the people in the building said that she thought that all of us were gay because she saw him.
Yeah.
And that story goes around, so we won't finish that. I mean, we won't, go to the end of it, but that.
What are you trying to tell us? You took
But
it right into
what we did, but what we ended up doing
I saw half a story.
was actually making sure that she understood that we were not gay.
That's a good cleanup.
And anyway,
At what moment?
well, as we now know.
after that, we began. I think it increased the fear because of that one incident. And when Keisha was in college, this guy who she befriended was gay, and he became one of our children, meaning Phoebe became one of our children. And when he couldn't go home for Christmas because his folk found out he was gay, he came to us, and we treated him just like our child. When I look at that retrospectively, that was the Creator bringing that into my life, so that I could really look at how I feel about this and deal with the fear, or the self-imposed fear, I should say maybe, or the distastefulness that I had for those people who were gay but did not voice it in that way. And in doing that, it changed me completely, because during the course of my preaching, I referenced in a very derogatory way homosexuality. And after I began to see how stupid I was and how much darkness I was walking in, I went back to those places and some of those people who I could find and apologize for having done that, because it was totally wrong. But I think it was necessary for me to do that, because it forced me to look at something that I was hiding from. And now the guy who befriended her has a partner, and they have a child. And to that child, the child calls me Papa and Phoebe now. And one of my siblings said something to her about them having this child, and her response was, so you would rather for this child to be in the street with its parent who is a crackhead than to be with these two men who are taking care of this child. And in a great manner. The sibling's response was, he gonna end up like them. And at that point she just shut up, because that's ignorance. You don't catch the game. Whatever that is. you know? So I believe that was introduced in my life, that was introduced in Nick's life, in terms of the dinner party thing, in preparation for where we are today.
And Raina had to really deal with it when she first went to San Francisco and
Yeah.
that area.
And I remember the guy, Cameron, ran for city council as an openly gay man in D.C. when I was in college. And that was unheard of. But he did it as an openly gay man, and that was the first time that I saw a rainbow flag. And he used it as a symbol. And it just, grew exponentially. Another thing, let me say this, Nick. I want to show you how fearful this thing is. I was at a funeral in Mississippi. And this guy from Texas was there, also, who's gay. And he recognized this guy who is from this small town in Mississippi. He said, oh my God, I know him. He said he was at the gay pride parade in Houston. He slept on my sofa. But now he was a male, and he walked up to him and said to him, don't tell anybody. Because he was fearful of what's going to happen to him in terms of rejection. Mm-hmm. So I think all of these things are there because if it is indeed selfish from a spiritual perspective, as Nick has described, then by virtue of embracing it, by virtue of recognizing it, by virtue of loving it, because love covers a multitude of entanglements. So it's not saying you go be disentangled, that you're going to love the gay out somebody. That's crazy. That's not it at all. Embrace them for who they are and deal with it from that perspective, as opposed to trying to impose your, and I don't want, it's not even values, your ignorance on them, because they're not values at all. Because if they were values, then you would not have such negative feelings or thoughts if they were values. So they are it is actually ignorance. So
You think this is a little bit what the Pope has been trying to say?
no, I don't. I think that Francis is the most dangerous Pope that's ever been in office.
Why would you say that?
Because he agreed with everything. We don't change our doctrine, but we agree with that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the most dangerous person is the one who presents himself as being compassionate to you, when at the same time he does not change his position. That's dangerous. If you look at what he is doing in relationship to what he believes, then he is not changing what he believes. Let me show you what I'm saying. At one point, my ideas about homosexuality was what his were. So when I talk about embracing, my beliefs have changed. His hasn't. You see what I'm talking about? The best way to keep somebody in slavery is to convince them they're not a slave. So he's dangerous because people are not actually listening. They're not actually listening. They're hearing what he's saying, but they're not listening. If you really believe that, stand there in that little bird window you stand on Sunday morning and say, as of today, homosexuality is not considered a sin. Stand, if you believe that, stand there and say that you believe that same-sex marriage should be worldwide. If you really believe what you say you believe.
Yeah.
He's dangerous in that regard. Because right now, religious people are migrating towards him because of what he's saying. They're not looking at what he's doing.
Well, that's the whole point. It was like a return to an older
Antichrist.
form of Catholicism.
Capitalism. That's what capitalism.
Hey, Janice, that is contagious. It's starting for the earth, right?
Everybody, I gotta go a bit earlier actually.
Okay.
Bye, Nick.
Yep.
Bye, Nick.
Did you have something about San Francisco?
Oh, I gotta go too.
You see.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
no. San Francisco, what? No.
No? Okay. I thought you had something to say, but we didn't get to you.
Oh, no, good.
Okay.
I can always say it later.
Go, we are definitely not finished.
No.
We'll see you soon.
Bye,
Yep.
Nick.
Bye, Nick.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Later.
So anyway, that's where the danger there is because of that. You know, professing to be one thing, but really acting out in a different way. That's what the danger is.
I was going to say, before I got stuck on the word, that used to be what they would do, pull in other religions, other people, and say, oh, it's okay if you have these slightly different beliefs. We're just going to slap a different name on it, and now we can manipulate you and control you.
That's where Christmas came from.
Mm-hmm.
The major thing, it was Tamar and the
Nimrod?
dude, huh?
Nimrod?
Yeah, the baby when the baby died, it was supposed to resurrect. During the the solstice, the winter solstice, and that's where Christmas came from. That's where Halloween came from, when all the saints will come back to the earth, and if you embrace them, if you had a light in your window for them and gave them a treat, then they wouldn't trick you. But if you didn't, they would trick you, and trick was not trick as we think trick is. It was very harmful. So that's what, and that was embracing the culture's beliefs, so that they would embrace Catholicism. Catholics don't care what you believe. They do not. You go to Haiti, you can practice voodoo and be a Catholic. They don't care what you believe.
Just come on, you're paying.
Yeah. Come on. Well, not so much as paying as giving them opportunity to take advantage of the resources.
Okay.
I noticed during Easter, now they're putting the little mark in the center of their heads.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, that's Ash. Ash.
Ashy.
That's Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
You had a rough time here.
You and Denise.
Who started it?
But that's the whole thing about the Mardi Gras came from. You know, so just accepting anything. You cannot say that you believe something and accept anything. If your speech should be reflective of what you believe.
So we're right back to the word right.
Yes. But that's forcing others to believe what you believe. That's forcing others to accept what you accept. So when you get to Sodom and Gomorrah, you are not talking about, from a spiritual perspective, you're not talking about the sexual thing. Because in Sodom and Gomorrah, it was not just homosexuality, it was also incest, it was also rape. It was also, if you fed a hungry person, you were killed. If you show compassion to someone, you were killed. You could not stay in Sodom and Gomorrah unless you were self-sufficient in terms of wealth. You had to be able to take care of yourself. So there were a plethora of things that took place in Sodom and Gomorrah that warranted the destruction of it. And the destruction of it was not as we see destruction. it was a purification. And when it talks about, and I got to leave also in a moment, but I want to get this out. When it talks about Lot's wife, when the messenger said, don't look back, right? It was not looking over her shoulder. It was like, don't reflect on, don't look back to what you left behind. That's what it was talking about. It was not looking over her shoulder and now she's a pillow of salt. That was not it at all. So once you, what he's saying is, once you have left this darkness, don't go back to it, not even in your mind.
Okay.
So the feminine looked back and the masculine went forward, but guess what? The masculine took forward with the same thing that he had left, because when he went to the city, the reason he left the city is because he was afraid that the people were going to kill them. So why was he afraid that the people were going to kill them? Because the people in that city was just like the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, and if he was mistaken for someone who was not a man of means, he would have been killed. So that's when he went to the caves, and he tried to lose all of his pain in a bottle or a skin. And as a result of that, the daughters committed incest, Moabites and Ammonites. So, and of course, we're going to delve deeper into.
So the issue though is that the daughters ended up doing what it was that Lot had vehemently rejected in the place that he came from, in the darkness he came from.
Yes, absolutely. And what happened, now keep this in mind. The reason that they did that also is because they specifically said, well, the older sister specifically said that we must do this, that our father's seed will not end. Now, their husbands did not believe that they were needed to leave that place. That's why they end up, not being there with them. And keep in mind also that when they retreated to the house, the husbands didn't, because they had to send for them. If you read carefully, you see they sent for them.
So where were they?
Where were they?
That's the question.
Being involved in what was going on. So again, we have to look at this from a totally different perspective, and that different perspective is we have to stop looking at it from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and look at it from the tree of life. Because what we have been taught is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's how we see it.
Yeah.
And when you and the thing that people do not want to face is when you sit there in their face and tell them that Jesus came from the lineage of a prostitute and incest. They want to gloss over that. It is okay for him. But you tell them that you were born as a result of incest. You tell them that you were born as a result of prostitution. And see what they have. You see what I'm talking about? So if it's bad when it comes to you, it's also bad when it comes to Jesus. The other thing is that we have a tendency, religious folk especially, looking at where you came from, what your lineage is. You come from a good family, or they family never did go to church. You don't know about them. That's why their attitude is the way it is. Well, if that is the case, if what you are today is based on your lineage, then who is Jesus based on his? Think about it. Look at his genealogy. Who is he? Based upon his.
Can I just point out that we always judge the prostitute but not the John?
Oh, always. Always. There's no
issue with that.
Well, let me show you how deep our issue was with
And
it.
he gets
When we were in college, we did things. To the John, when they would come into the cities for prostitutes, when they got home, their wives knew that they had been somewhere they had no business because they could look at the card tag.
Look at the car.
They did something.
Yeah. And they had to explain what happened to the car. So it went rate of prostitution went down dramatically to the point where the pimps started trying to hurt us as a result of what we were doing. So it's not all males who look at it just from that perspective. What I see is that males have no regard whatsoever for the feminine when you go buy sex. And what I'm saying is that you by virtue of you buying it, you are treating them the same way you would a garden hose or a tire for your car. You're buying a product. And you see,
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Well, what does it say about the person who sells that?
The
item?
person who
They don't
sells,
have regard.
women are receivers. And if you interview prostitutes, you will find that the overwhelming majority of them have been damaged by a male somewhere in their life. I knew a guy who was a pimp, and he was pimping his sister and his mother.
Oh,
Now you tell me what regard that he had for female.
Hey, dang.
that's a good point. Isn't it?
And that's no exaggeration, that's a reality. And so I believe that, Barbara, it speaks to where she came from in terms of her relationship with males. And males can heal that by virtue of helping her to rise above what she thinks she is, as opposed to who she really is. Yeah, this happened to you, but we can move beyond that. Let me help you heal from this, as opposed to taking advantage of it. Why do you think that the overwhelming majority of prostitutes, not all of them, but a huge amount of prostitutes, are on drugs? It helps them to get through that. And let me say this, and I'm gone. Speaking of drugs, and I just put a side note to this, and you can pick up when I leave. George sent me a link to sent me the name rather of a drug called Crocodile, spelled with a K, and that drug is in Russia, but it's come to this country now, and it is more addictive than heroin. I think it's 25 times more addictive than heroin, and it rots your flesh.
It what?
Your flesh
Oh.
rots and falls from your
Oh
bones.
my God.
Inside out, they were saying.
Yeah, and when you take it, your skin turns into scaly, becomes scaly. And
Tears for this. How do you just not know, I guess, if that's, you figure you'll take like the first, I don't know.
I have this theory about addicts that I'd like to explore later.
It doesn't sound like a party drug.
This theory I have about it
Okay.
is that they are like people who commit suicide. They don't want to kill themselves, they just want the pain to stop. They're just doing it slowly.
Yeah.
You know, that's my theory. I don't know how, I have not tested it, but that's what I kind of believe. So when you say who would take that, you know, and people are actually doing it. Now, what do I believe about it? I believe that it's an easy way to get rid of the heroin addicts that you've been trying to get rid of for years in Russia.
It sounds interesting.
Russia has the highest rate of heroin abusers than any country in the world. So, but it is a derivative of heroin mixed with other chemicals.
Engineered.
Yes, definitely engineered. Yeah. So,
The problem with
and
getting rid of the heroin addicts is that you're going to create, it may be your child who's not a heroin addict who gets this drug.
yeah, most definitely. But also keep in mind that Putin said the reason we have to deal with homosexuals is because of the Europeans are decreasing in number. Now, couple that with the idea that the drug is in Russia and now it's in this country.
It's still Sodom and Gomorrah. Our
No
Our
question.
capitalist
No
whatever
question.
reflects the same values
Every,
that require
listen,
the purification of Sodom
don't
and
care,
Gomorrah.
let the old man go into the war memorial, but kick the kids off a Head Start. Come on.
Yeah.
Let them starve. Let it be cake. let them starve. But do the cancer research for the kids that I'm starving. It's absolutely Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm out.